"Get up, Constance," my mother said, fastening a pearl earring while I was folded on the hallway floor. I had one hand pressed into the lower right side of my stomach and the other wrapped around the leg of the console table, trying not to slide all the way down. "Mom," I whispered, "I need the ER." My father looked at his watch. Not at me. At his watch. "Denise, we need to leave in 6 minutes," he said. "They'll give away the table." My mother sighed like I had knocked over a vase instead of begged for help. She crouched in front of me, her perfume sharp and expensive, her dress still covered in plastic from the dry cleaner. "You always do this when the attention isn't on you." I stared at her, sweating through my pajama shirt. I threw up twice. "I can't stand." "If this were a real emergency," my father said, reaching for his car keys, "you wouldn't be arguing." That was the moment the power in the room shifted. They were dressed for their anniversary dinner. I was shaking on the floor. And somehow, I was the inconvenience. I tried to push myself up, but pain tore through my sides so hard I made a sound I didn't recognize. My mother glanced toward the front window. "Keep your voice down. The neighbors don't need to hear you making a scene," I said, "then call an ambulance." My father's face hardened. "You know how expensive that is. You are not sticking us with a bill because you want attention." I was 23 years old, a nursing student, and still dependent on them for part of my rent. They never let me forget it. Every check came with a reminder that I owed them respect. Every disagreement ended with my anxiety being used like proof that I could not trust myself. But this pain was not anxiety. It was sharp, hot, and getting worse by the minute. "Please," I said. "Just drive me. 10 minutes. You can still go after." My mother stood, smoothed the front of her dress, and looked at my father. "We're going to be late." He opened the door. For 1 second, I thought they would turn back. I thought seeing me curled on the floor would finally break through whatever story they had built about me being dramatic. Instead, my father said, "We'll talk when we get home." The door shut. Their car pulled out of the driveway. I stayed there until the sound of the engine disappeared, then dragged my phone off the floor with fingers so sweaty the screen would not read my touch. I opened a rideshare app and typed the hospital address wrong twice before I got it right. When the driver arrived, he found me sitting on the porch step in pajama pants, barefoot, hunched over with my forehead nearly touching my knees. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No," I said. "Please just drive." Halfway there, my phone lit up. "Mom, stop embarrassing us. We'll talk when we get home." I turned the screen over in my lap. At the ER desk, I gave my name, tried to hand over my ID, and caught the edge of the counter as the room tilted sideways. The last thing I heard before a nurse called for help was my phone buzzing again. And later, when I woke up, I would learn something that made their excuse impossible to believe. Because if my parents were so sure I was faking, why had my mother already deleted a hospital voicemail that morning? Before we continue, drop your city and country in the comments below. And if you enjoy revenge stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. I woke up under lights so white they made my eyes water. For a second, I didn't know where I was. My mouth tasted like plastic. There was tape pulling at the inside of my elbow, and 4-line running from my arm to a bag above the bed, and a blood pressure cuff squeezing my bicep every few minutes. A nurse leaned over me. "Constance? Can you hear me?" I nodded, then immediately regretted moving. The pain was still there, but different now. Deeper. Angrier. "You came in alone?" she asked. I blinked at her. "My parents." I stopped. I almost said they were at dinner. I almost said they left me. Instead, I swallowed and asked, "What's wrong with me?" "We're waiting on imaging," she said, gentle but quick. "But based on your symptoms and exam, they're worried about appendicitis. The doctor wants to move fast." Appendicitis. The word hit me with a strange, cold clarity. Not a panic attack. Not a tension. Not me being dramatic. Something inside my body was actually wrong. The nurse picked up the chart. "Who do you want listed as your emergency contact?" My mother's name came to my lips automatically. Denise Miller. Same number I had memorized since I was a kid. The person every form expected me to write down. Then my phone vibrated on the blanket. Mom. Missed call. Another vibration. Mom. Missed call. For one stupid second, my chest loosened. Maybe they had realized. Maybe they had gotten to the restaurant, sat down under the soft lights, and finally pictured me still on the floor. Then the texts started coming in. Mom, your aunt asked why you aren't at dinner. Dad, you need to answer before your mother gets upset. Mom, do not make us look cruel. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. The nurse waited beside me with her pen ready. My roommate, I said. My voice came out dry and small. Her name is Maya Patel. That was the first time I did not give them access. While the nurse typed, I looked down at my phone again. 3 more missed calls. None of them asked where I was. None of them asked if I was safe. Every message was about the dinner, the relatives, the story they needed me to support. It dragged me backward to being 16, standing in my grandmother's kitchen during a panic attack while my mother told everyone, "Don't feed into it. She performs when she feels ignored." I remembered my father picking me up from campus after I cried in a professor's office freshman year and saying, "Tuition help comes with basic respect, Constance. You don't get to embarrass us and take our money." That was how they kept the room tilted in their favor. They paid just enough of my rent that I could not ignore them. They reminded me often enough that I felt guilty before I even disagreed. And any time I sounded afraid, angry, or overwhelmed, they put one label on it. Anxiety. As if anxiety meant I could never be sick. As if anxiety meant pain had to ask their permission to be real. A doctor came in with a tablet in his hand. "Constance," he said, "your scan shows your appendix is inflamed. We need to take you to surgery before it ruptures." My fingers tightened around the blanket. "Surgery. I know that's scary," he said, "but you came in at the right time. We don't want to wait." A consent form appeared on a clipboard. The pen shook so badly in my hand that my signature looked like it belonged to someone else. When I finished, the nurse asked, "Do you want us to call your parents?" My throat closed. Before I could answer, Maya rushed into the room in sweatpants and mismatched shoes, her hair half falling out of a clip. "Oh my God," she said, grabbing the bed rail. "Constance." I tried to smile, but it folded on my face. Maya looked at the nurse, then at the 4, then back at me. "Where are they?" "At dinner," I said. Her expression changed like someone had opened a window in winter. "They left you." I nodded once. Maya's hands curled around the rail until her knuckles went pale. "Do you want me to call them?" "No." The answer came faster than I expected. Then my voice cracked. "I keep thinking they'll come anyway." Maya sat beside me and took my phone, not to pry, but because it kept buzzing against my leg. She silenced the calls first. Then she scrolled with that sharp, focused look she got when something did not make sense. "Constance," she said slowly, "didn't you say the clinic called you after your appointment?" I looked at her. "They sent something. I remember a notification. There's no voicemail here." I frowned through the pain medication haze. Maybe I deleted it. You never delete medical messages. She checked again, then opened my patient portal email. There was a notification from 2 days ago, but the voicemail itself was gone. The little details sat there like puzzle pieces with no picture yet. Maybe the system glitched. Maybe I had tapped the wrong button. Maybe my parents had only been cruel tonight, not before. A transport orderly appeared at the doorway. "We're ready for her." Maya squeezed my hand. "I'll be right here when you wake up." As they rolled me toward the operating room, my phone lit up one more time in Maya's hand. Not a call. A social media notification. My mother had posted a photo from the restaurant. She and my father were smiling beneath gold anniversary balloons, champagne glasses raised. The caption read, 30 years of choosing what matters. The first thing I saw the next morning was my mother's smile. Not in my hospital room. On my phone. I was lying on my back with a bandage under my gown, my throat raw from anesthesia, and every small movement pulling at the stitches in my abdomen. Maya was asleep in the chair beside me with her arms folded tight, like she had refused to fully relax even after they told her I was stable. My phone was on the rolling tray near the bed. I reached for it slowly and unlocked the screen. There they were. My parents at their anniversary dinner. My mother leaned into my father with her hand on his chest, showing off her wedding ring. My father held up a glass of wine. Behind them, relatives filled the table with candles, wrapped gifts, and gold balloons that said 30 years. The caption still sat under the photo like a slap. 30 years of choosing what matters. There were already dozens of comments. Aunt Karen wrote, "Beautiful couple." Such an example. My cousin Emily wrote, "Wish I could have been there." Then Aunt Lorraine commented, "Where's Constance?" Thought she was coming too. I held my breath. My mother had replied 20 minutes earlier. She had one of her episodes and decided to punish us by disappearing. For a few seconds, I just stared. The hospital monitor beeped beside me. Somewhere down the hall, wheels squeaked over tile. Maya stirred in the chair but didn't wake up. I read the comment again, slower this time, because my brain kept trying to reject it. One of her episodes. Punish us. Disappearing. They had left me on the floor, gone to dinner, ignored my calls, and while I was being prepped for emergency surgery, my mother had explained my absence to the family by making me sound unstable. My fingers started shaking around the phone. Maya opened her eyes. "Hey, you okay?" I turned the screen toward her. She read it, and the sleep vanished from her face. "No," she said. "Absolutely not." She stood so quickly the chair scraped backward. "Give me your discharge papers." "Maya." "No. They don't get to do this." She grabbed the folder from the counter and took a picture of the hospital bracelet around my wrist, then the first page of my discharge instructions with the admission time visible. I reached for her wrist. "Don't post it." She looked at me like I had asked her to hand my parents a trophy. "Constance, they're lying about you." "I know. Publicly." "I know. Then why are you protecting them?" I looked at the screen again. More heart emojis. More congratulations. More people believing my mother because she had spoken first. "I'm not protecting them," I said. "I just don't want to become what they're saying I am." Maya's face softened, but she didn't delete the photos. My phone rang before either of us could say anything else. "Dad." Maya looked at me. I nodded once. She answered and put it on speaker. My father's voice came through sharp and controlled. "Constance, this has gone far enough." I waited. He didn't ask where I was. He didn't ask what the doctor said. He didn't ask if I was alive because, by then, he knew I was alive enough to be inconvenient. "Your mother has been crying all morning," he said. "People are messaging us. Your Aunt Lorraine is asking questions. Do you have any idea how this looks?" Maya's jaw tightened. I pressed one hand lightly against my bandage and said, "I had surgery." There was a pause. Not a gasp. Not my name. Just silence, like he was rearranging the conversation in his head. "My appendix was infected," I said. "They operated last night." Another pause. Then my mother's voice came on the line, closer and colder. "Well," she said, "nobody told us." Maya leaned toward the phone. "She begged you to drive her." My mother sucked in a breath. "Who is this?" "The person who actually showed up." "Maya," I whispered, but she didn't back down. My father cut in again. "This is exactly what we mean, Constance. You bring outsiders into family matters, and then you wonder why things escalate." "Family matters?" Maya said. She was in the ER. "You don't know the history," he snapped. "Constance has a pattern." There it was again. The word they never had to say outright because everyone understood the meaning. Dramatic. Emotional. Unstable. My father continued, "And if she keeps acting this way, we may need to reconsider how much help we provide. Rent, phone, all of it. We cannot reward this behavior." My stomach turned, and not from the surgery. He was threatening my housing from a hospital bed. I looked at the tape on my arm, the discharge packet, the tiny plastic cup of pills on the tray. Then I looked at Maya, who had gone completely still. I said, "You left me." My father exhaled like I was testing his patience. "We had no way of knowing it was serious. I told you I couldn't stand. You say a lot of things when you're worked up." I threw up twice. "You didn't call us from the hospital. You were at dinner." My mother's voice snapped back in. "Because you told us you were fine enough to order a ride." Maya laughed once, short and stunned. She ordered a ride because you refused to take her. Nobody spoke. Then the line went dead. For the first time since waking up, I felt something stronger than hurt. A thin, steady line of clarity. They were not confused. They were not waiting for information. They were building a version of the night where I had chosen to vanish, and they had been innocent victims of my silence. A message popped up while the call screen disappeared. Aunt Lorraine. Constance, honey. Your mother says you refused to come to dinner because you were jealous of the attention. Is that true? I want the real story. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could hear my mother's voice in my head, warning me not to make the family look cruel. I could hear my father talking about rent. I could see every relative reading whatever I sent and deciding whether I was sick or spiteful. Maya put her hand over mine. Send one thing, she said. Not an argument. Proof. So I did. I took a photo of my hospital bracelet, making sure my name and admission time were clear. Admitted 7:42 p.m. 40 minutes after my parents pulled out of the driveway for their dinner reservation. I sent it to Aunt Lorraine with one line. I was in emergency surgery while they were eating. The reply bubbles appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then nothing. For the rest of the day, I did what the nurses told me. I walked slowly down the hallway. I drank water. I learned how to sit up without tearing pain through my side. Maya handled the discharge instructions because every time I looked at paperwork, all I could think about was my father threatening to pull rent money while I still had a hospital bracelet on. That evening, Maya checked my mother's post again. The comments had changed. Aunt Lorraine's "Where's Constance?" was gone. So was my mother's reply about my episode. In their place, someone had written, Denise, is Constance okay? Lorraine said she was in the hospital. Then another. Wait, was this during the dinner? Then my cousin Emily, why did the post say she disappeared? My mother had stopped responding. The perfect anniversary picture was still up, but it looked different now. Same candles. Same wine glasses. Same gold balloons. Only now, people were starting to look at the empty chair. My phone rang. Aunt Lorraine. I answered with my heart pounding. Her voice came through low and careful. Constance, she said, your mother told us she checked on you before dessert. But the restaurant photos prove she never left. The knock came 11 days after surgery. Not a gentle knock. 3 hard hits that shook the door in its frame. I was on the couch with a pillow pressed against my stomach, trying to sort hospital papers into piles I understood and piles that made me feel like I was drowning. Maya was at the kitchen table with her laptop open, helping me compare billing codes against the discharge packet. The knock came again. Harder. Maya looked up first. I already knew. My phone had been quiet all morning, and that had felt wrong. Too quiet. Like someone had stopped texting only because they had decided to show up instead. I stood carefully, one hand on the arm of the couch, the other braced against my side. Don't open it all the way, Maya said. I won't. I moved to the door slowly, each step pulling tight under the bandage. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing on the mat in a beige coat, lips pressed into a patient smile she only used in public. My father stood behind her with his arms crossed, staring at the door like it belonged to him. I slid the chain into place and opened the door 3 inches. My mother's smile widened. Constance, she said softly, we need to talk. My father looked past me into the apartment. Let us in. No. The word surprised all 3 of us. My mother's smile flickered. Sweetheart, don't do this in the hallway. I'm not doing anything, I said. You came here. She glanced toward the neighboring doors. Exactly. And people can hear. Maya appeared behind me but stayed far enough back to let me handle it. My father lowered his voice. This has gone too far. There it was again. Not my surgery. Not the ride I had taken alone. Not the fact that they had left me on the floor. This. Their problem now had a name, and it was exposure. Relatives are calling your mother, he said. My sister is asking questions. Someone at work saw that ridiculous thread under the anniversary picture. My mother lifted one hand like she was calming a frightened animal. We're here to fix this privately. Fix what? The misunderstanding, she said. I stared at her through the gap in the door. What misunderstanding? My father stepped closer. You need to put a message in the family chat. Nothing dramatic. Just say emotions were high, and we didn't understand how serious it was. Maya made a small sound behind me, like she had bitten back a laugh. I kept my eyes on my parents. But you did understand. I told you I couldn't stand. My mother's expression tightened. You were speaking very emotionally. I was in pain. And we are not doctors, my father said. Which is exactly why this needs to stop before you damage relationships over assumptions. I looked down at the folder on my small entryway table. The top bill showed a number I had reread so many times it felt burned into my eyes. Even with insurance, even with payment options, it was more than I had in savings. My father saw me look. His voice changed immediately. We'll help with the copay, he said. But not while you're letting people call us monsters. I felt Maya step closer behind me. My mother nodded, as if that was generous. All we're asking is for you to correct the story. I almost said yes. Not because I believed them. Because the bill was sitting 10 feet away. Because my rent was due in 2 weeks. Because part of me had been trained to hear money as a leash and call it love. Then my eyes dropped to my mother's hand. She was holding a key. A brass key with a chipped blue cap. My spare. The one I kept in the back of my kitchen drawer under a stack of takeout menus. My skin went cold. Where did you get that? My mother followed my gaze, and for once, she didn't have an answer ready. My father said, "Don't change the subject." "That is my spare key." "We were checking on you," my mother said quickly. "When?" She shifted her purse higher on her shoulder. "After the hospital. You came into my apartment while I was gone?" "We are your parents." That's not an answer. Maya moved to the door now, her face sharp. "How did you even know where she kept it?" My mother's mouth opened, then closed. My father's jaw flexed. Enough. We did what any concerned parents would do. Concerned parents don't enter an apartment without permission after leaving their daughter to take a rideshare to emergency surgery, Maya said. My mother's eyes snapped to her. This is a family conversation. No, Maya said. This is a locked door conversation because Constance doesn't trust you. Something in that sentence landed. I didn't trust them. And once I admitted that to myself, the rest of the room rearranged. The missing voicemail. The family phone account my mother still managed because it was cheaper that way. The patient portal notification I remembered seeing 2 days before the ER visit. The way Denise had said, nobody told us too fast. Not confused. Defensive. My parents were still talking, but their voices blurred into pressure. Correct the story. Think about rent. Don't embarrass the family. I backed away from the door with the chain still latched and picked up my laptop from the side table. What are you doing? My father asked. Checking something. Constance, my mother warned. I opened my email and searched the clinic name with shaking fingers. Maya leaned over my shoulder. There it was. A patient portal alert from 2 days before the surgery. I clicked it. The message was short, clinical, and clear. If pain worsens or moves to the lower right abdomen, especially with vomiting or fever, seek emergency evaluation immediately. My breath stopped. Beside the message was a read receipt from the linked account activity. Opened. Not by my phone. Not by my laptop. The location matched my parents' house. Maya whispered, "Oh my God." My mother's face changed. Not dramatically. Not like a movie villain caught in a spotlight. It was smaller than that. Her lips parted. Her eyes dropped for half a second to the laptop screen. Then she looked away. That half second told me everything. You saw it, I said. My father didn't answer. You saw the clinic warning. My mother's voice went thin. You don't understand how these portals work. I'm a nursing student. Silence. The hallway felt airless. I looked at the key in her hand, then at the read receipt, then at the hospital bill on my table. For 11 days, they had insisted they had no way of knowing. For 11 days, they had said I was overreacting. For 11 days, they had wanted me to tell the family this was a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. It was a choice. I took my phone from the table. What are you doing now? Harold asked. I'm calling Aunt Lorraine, I said. Then my landlord. Then the hospital billing office. My mother stepped closer to the crack in the door. Constance, don't. Before she could say another word, my father's phone rang. The screen lit up in his hand. Aunt Lorraine. My father stared at Aunt Lorraine's name like the phone had betrayed him too. It rang once. Twice. My mother reached for his wrist. Don't answer that out here. I looked at Maya. She had already taken her phone from her pocket. Not pointed at their faces. Not dramatic. Just held low in her hand with the camera running, because by then we both understood the rule. Private conversations with my parents turned into whatever story helped them survive the next room. I unlatched the chain but kept my hand on the door. You can come in, I said, but Maya is staying, and this conversation is not happening unrecorded. My father's eyes narrowed. That's ridiculous. So is leaving your daughter on the floor and asking her to lie about it afterward. That shut him up long enough for the phone to ring again. Answer it, I said. He did. Aunt Lorraine's voice came through before he could say hello. Harold, I'm going to ask you one time. Why did Denise tell me she checked on Constance before dessert when the tagged photos show both of you seated at the table the entire night? My mother's face drained of color. Harold turned away, but Maya's phone was still recording, and Aunt Lorraine was loud enough for all of us to hear. Lorraine, he said, this has been blown out of proportion. No, she snapped. A restaurant photo is not a misunderstanding. A hospital bracelet is not a misunderstanding. And your daughter having surgery while you were toasting champagne is not a misunderstanding. I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch because my side had started to pull. My hands were shaking, so I tucked them under the pillow against my stomach. My mother noticed and started toward me automatically, like she could still perform concern now that there was an audience. Maya stepped between us. Don't, Maya said. Denise stopped. For the first time in my life, my mother looked at someone protecting me and did not know how to talk around it. My father stared at Aunt Lorraine's name like the phone had betrayed him too. It rang once. Twice. My mother reached for his wrist. Don't answer that out here. I looked at Maya. She had already taken her phone from her pocket. Not pointed at their faces. Not dramatic. Just held low in her hand with the camera running, because by then we both understood the rule. Private conversations with my parents turned into whatever story helped them survive the next room. I unlatched the chain but kept my hand on the door. You can come in, I said, but Maya is staying, and this conversation is not happening unrecorded. My father's eyes narrowed. That's ridiculous. So is leaving your daughter on the floor and asking her to lie about it afterward. That shut him up long enough for the phone to ring again. Answer it, I said. He did. Aunt Lorraine's voice came through before he could say hello. Harold, I'm going to ask you one time. Why did Denise tell me she checked on Constance before dessert when the tagged photos show both of you seated at the table the entire night? My mother's face drained of color. Harold turned away, but Maya's phone was still recording, and Aunt Lorraine was loud enough for all of us to hear. Lorraine, he said, this has been blown out of proportion. No, she snapped. A restaurant photo is not a misunderstanding. A hospital bracelet is not a misunderstanding. And your daughter having surgery while you were toasting champagne is not a misunderstanding. I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch because my side had started to pull. My hands were shaking, so I tucked them under the pillow against my stomach. My mother noticed and started toward me automatically, like she could still perform concern now that there was an audience. Maya stepped between us. Don't, Maya said. Denise stopped. For the first time in my life, my mother looked at someone protecting me and did not know how to talk around it. Aunt Lorraine's voice came again. Constance, are you there? I'm here. Tell me exactly what happened. My mother's head snapped toward me. Constance. No, I said. It came out quiet, but it landed. I looked at my father's phone, then at my mother, then at the laptop still open on the entryway table with the clinic alert on the screen. 2 days before the ER, I went to the clinic because my stomach hurt. They told me if the pain moved lower right, or if I started vomiting or got a fever, I needed emergency care. They sent a portal alert and a voicemail. Aunt Lorraine went silent. I kept going. That night, it did move. I threw up twice. I told them. I begged them to drive me. They said I was looking for attention because they didn't want to miss their anniversary dinner. My mother's eyes shone, but not with the kind of tears that made me soften. These were angry tears. Cornered tears. We didn't know it was that serious, she said. Maya picked up the laptop and turned it slightly. The alert was opened from your house, she said. Denise's mouth tightened. Harold rubbed his forehead. This is getting absurd. No, I said. This is finally getting specific. Aunt Lorraine's voice dropped. Denise, did you see the medical message? My mother pressed her fingers against her pearls. I saw a notification, she said. The room went still. My father looked at her sharply. Denise. She swallowed. I thought she was working herself up again. She had been anxious about school. She had exams. I didn't think. You deleted the voicemail, I said. My mother's eyes flicked toward me. There it was. Not a denial. Just the tiny pause of someone deciding whether lying would still work. I cleared it from the phone account, she said. It wasn't helpful. It would have made her spiral. My throat burned. I had imagined a lot of explanations in 11 days. A glitch. A mistaken tap. A medical office error. Even my own pain-muddled memory failing me. But hearing my mother say she decided what medical information I was allowed to have made the room feel smaller. Aunt Lorraine spoke slowly. You deleted a clinic warning because you didn't want her to panic? Denise lifted her chin. Because the dinner mattered too. 30 years, Lorraine. People had flown in. The deposit was non-refundable. I was not going to have the entire night ruined by another crisis. Another crisis. That was what I had been while an infection sat inside me. Not a daughter. A crisis. Harold stepped in, voice lower, trying to sound reasonable. Denise mentioned it to me, yes. But we agreed we would see how she was in the morning. Our bills are not small. Constance knows that. She's on our insurance. We pay enough already. Aunt Lorraine made a sound I had never heard from her before. Not a gasp. Something colder. So you both knew. Neither of them answered. They didn't have to. I held the pillow tighter against my stomach and said, they knew there was a warning. They knew my symptoms matched it. They left anyway. Then they told everyone I disappeared because I was jealous of their dinner. Then they came here today and offered to help with the copay only if I told the family it was a misunderstanding. My father's face hardened again. We did not offer. We said we would discuss. You threatened my rent from my hospital bed. Maya's voice was quiet, but every word was clear. I heard that call. Aunt Lorraine said nothing for several seconds. Then she said, Denise, we toasted your marriage while your daughter was in surgery. My mother flinched like the words had crossed the room and touched her. I didn't know she was in surgery then. You knew she should have been at a hospital. That was the line nobody could soften. Denise looked away first. Aunt Lorraine asked me to send everything I had, the bracelet, the discharge papers, the clinic alert, the read receipt, and the screenshots of my parents' messages. I sent them while my parents stood in my apartment, silent now, watching the version of the story they had built lose its walls. Within an hour, the family chat changed. People who had sent hearts under the anniversary photo started deleting comments. My cousin Emily wrote, Constance, I'm so sorry. Aunt Karen asked why Denise had described surgery as an episode. Harold's sister messaged him directly and told him not to call her about the loan he had wanted co-signed. By that evening, Denise had removed the anniversary post. But screenshots had already moved faster than she could. Aunt Lorraine sent one final message in the group chat. Constance was admitted to the ER at 7:42 p.m. after asking her parents for help. She had emergency surgery. This family will not pressure her to protect anyone's image. No one argued with her. That was how my parents lost the thing they cared about most. Not money first. Not access first. Their image. The polished version of themselves that sat at restaurant tables and smiled under gold balloons while everyone called them devoted. Once people saw the timestamps, the messages, the photos, and the warning they ignored, the story could not be folded back into place. The money followed. My father paid the hospital copay after Aunt Lorraine told him she would help me speak to a patient advocate and a small claims attorney about the costs connected to their threats and negligence. He did it angrily, with a transfer note that said medical help, as if he were still the generous one. I did not thank him. I called the phone company and transferred my line out of the family plan. I removed both of my parents as emergency contacts. I changed the password on every medical portal I had. I emailed my landlord and wrote, in plain language, that Denise and Harold Miller did not have permission to enter my apartment under any circumstances. The locksmith came the next morning. When he handed me the new keys, Maya held out her palm and said, "One spare. With me. Not in a drawer." For the first time in days, I laughed without it hurting too much. Denise tried to recover control in small ways. She texted relatives that she was being painted as a monster. She said I had always been sensitive. She said no mother was perfect. But the difference was that this time, people asked for dates. They asked for screenshots. They asked why she deleted the voicemail. She stopped answering. Harold lost more quietly. His sister refused the loan. His coworkers, the ones who had seen the anniversary post before it vanished, stopped asking about the dinner and started asking if his daughter was all right. That bothered him more than he admitted. My father could handle anger. He could not handle being pitted by people who knew he had failed. I moved in with Maya for the next semester to cut expenses. I applied for a hospital payment plan for the remaining charges. When I was cleared to return to work, I took extra shifts that fit around classes. It was not easy. Independence did not arrive like a victory song. It arrived as spreadsheets, cheaper groceries, and learning which bills could be paid in installments. But every hard thing belonged to me. No one could attach conditions to it. No one could say rent came with silence. No one could call a medical emergency disrespect. At my follow-up appointment, I went alone. Not because no one cared. Because I chose to. The nurse checked the incision and said it was healing well. I looked down at the small scar, still tender and pink, and thought about the girl on the porch step 11 nights earlier, barefoot in pajama pants, trying to survive being inconvenient. She had gotten herself to the hospital. She had told the truth. She had opened the door only wide enough to take her life back. When I got home, there was one message from an unknown number. "We're still your parents." No apology. No question. No mention of the ER, the dinner, the voicemail, or the hospital room they never came to. Just one last attempt to make biology sound like ownership. I blocked the number and set the phone face down on the table. Outside, Maya was arguing with a delivery driver who had brought the wrong soup, and the apartment smelled like laundry detergent and ginger tea. My new key sat beside my wallet. My hospital folder was tucked away in a drawer. For once, my phone was quiet because the people who used to flood it with guilt no longer had a way in. 11 days after they knocked on my door, I finally understood that family is not proven by who demands to be forgiven, but by who shows up when the reservation can wait.